coalition, consortium, call it what you will, and start mapping out a broader approach, particularly with the media coverage that we're getting and that we can generate with, with the great support of John Davis, Cheryl, et cetera. I mean, all of us here have particular expertise. And so the question is, how do we go about this? Like, what are some of the brass tacks next steps? We've talked about doing a press conference and announcing some of the things that we're doing. Maybe one of the larger investors who steps forward, we can do like one of those giant checks. What was your analogy, John? Like at a...
Yeah, the golf checks.
The golf checks.
And the thing about it is, like, the media is, nothing's hotter, right now than that. And money plus business equals story, right? And that's what we got to do right now. We got to continue to convey the message that we are the ones, we are moving forward. We're moving forward to create a success in this program so that Texas wants that.
Absolutely.
No, I wanted to make a few specific points about the media. When you discuss basically what is the next step, how do we get to that next point, and I think that you executed a branding and media strategy that was brilliant. I mean, the fact that, yes, of course you want to be first, and that's kind of a no-brainer for most of us, but the fact that you so brilliantly held a press conference the night or the day after the election and announced your branding strategy was key. And plus the momentum that, we've had, I work as a PR and media expert. I can tell you that with media, the primary thing that they've been lacking up to this point was something that was relative, something that their audience could relate to. And that's where really I believe that we have the secret formula. There's a theory called Gestalt's theory, and I don't know if you're familiar with it, but it basically in layman's terms is like meets like, and people will listen to people that they can relate to. And I think that's where, I've been able to lead that in the media effort. The fact that, I am a mainstream person. I come from the corporate world just like Jamin and
John.
And John, yes. And what I have found is that it's not that I'm that great of a person. I mean, I am a great person,
are.
don't get me wrong. And thank you for the Activist of the Year award. I'd like to add that. But a lot of times I think people miss the mark. And the mark is this. We are at a tipping point. There's no question about it. And up to this point, there have been hundreds of thousands of cannabis supporters, but no one was really listening because the media portrayed us as these, less than honorable, less than mainstream type people. And one of the things that I got really tired of seeing in the media was that stock footage that they always cut to for B-roll with the homeless guy in the alley toking on a joint. And for me, I'll never forget when Barbara Walters had me on The View, and she looked at me, and when they let us out, she looked at me, she looked at them, and she goes, "Are these the pot women?" And when I sat down next to her, she put her hand on mine. She said, "I'm so sorry, dear. You're not what I was expecting." And I think that's where it really gets people. When we shot with the doctors, one of the first things that the doctors said was basically, "Oh, so you're having parties to get high." Well, it's not parties to get high. In fact, the cannabis I use is high in CBDs, which is completely non-psychoactive. But the bottom line is, when you have a mainstream face and a great brand, people are curious because it's marijuana. They're going to tune in because it's marijuana. But when they see someone like Jamin or John or me or any of the people in this room, they take a second look and it grabs their attention. And then they're like, "Oh my God." They start listening. And that's where you cross that tipping point and get into the next realm. And I really think that's exactly where we are right now. We have a captive audience. And as you said, last year it was once every couple of months. Now it's like almost every other day there's some kind of story about media and cannabis, and I really think that's where we need to capitalize on that. So my advice as far as getting to that next level is have a very well orchestrated, very well planned out, and then executed media strategy and campaign that starts immediately, because that's where you bring in the investors, you bring in your clients, and as I was saying earlier, if you start a merchandising program and start selling those ancillary products now, which you could do online, and then you're also building your database to bring in all of those people who are going to be patients and consumers. As I said, we've been gathering data, and you come from Microsoft, so you know how vitally important that data is. You know, so start data mining all of that. When people, you know, come to your website and they want to buy a product, gather their information, because those are going to be your clients for the rest of your lives.
Yeah.
So that's what I think is a very well executed media campaign with all of your media points, your branding points, and you execute and you never ever stop.
Yeah, and a lot of the 60 years of propaganda that's come out of the U.S. government has just been wrong, right? And so we're all filled with those misconceptions. And so we have this stoner stereotype.
Yeah.
And the stoner stereotype is only there, and this is
Yeah.
a testament to it, my
Mhm.
shop. That because you look at that person and you say, oh, yeah, that guy's a worthless stoner.
Yeah.
Well, he may or may not be, but that's what you associate with.
Yeah.
But who comes in here? Doctors, lawyers, old people, professionals.
Generals.
I mean, the people, generals,
Mm.
that you wouldn't look at with that stoner stereotype, but they are cannabis consumers,
Mhm.
and that's what we're seeing emerge. I was reading a report last week that cannabis use is up slightly, but in the 51 plus category.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Down in
I'll
teenagers.
tell you,
Down in teenagers.
I'll tell you something that's hilarious. I mean, I've never seen this before, ever. But, you know, these guys occasionally, they'll give me something, you know, and so I'll take it, oh, what is this, you know, and smell, oh, God, this is amazing. And I'll put it on my, I've got like a bar come here, you know, I'll put it on there. And guys are coming over to my house that I know, and, you know, they've never gone over and said, look at that scotch, oh, I love that, thank you, can I, you know, you don't mind, do you? You know, they're doing that with this stuff.
Yeah,
They're
that's
like,
right.
hey, this is
You
cool,
recycle.
you know, you're taking it. It's like, what are you doing? That's mine. No, no,
Yourself.
and I, you know, why? Because there's no place for them to go and buy this. They, you know, they want it, you know?
Well, one thing about the media too is it's been really dangerous to get in the media if you're part of California for all these years, and it still could be dangerous. And I think that there are a lot of good people out there in the industry, but we just have to make it a safe place for them
Agree.
in the media, because it's really caused a lot of damage up to this point, and hopefully we are at a turning point, and you know, you
I
can.
think the war is won.
Yeah.
People just don't even know
Yeah,
it yet.
it's just
Well,
a
not so much
matter
in
of
California.
everybody falling down, yeah.
Well, we
I mean, because you have local state's attorneys and district attorneys, and there's so much confusion. There's so many places in California 17 years later who have zero regulations, complete bans. I mean, all of Ventura
Yeah.
County next to LA. LA, we just passed regulation for the first time in 17 years, but it's challenged in court, yet to be enforced. San Diego has no regulated dispensaries. Orange County has no dispensaries. So it's like, and if law enforcement wants to say, I mean, I was at a recent meeting, we passed regulation in LA, it was called limited immunity, and they give us certain rules to follow, but then at our inside Glocka meeting, I start hearing all these things about, well, don't say sales, because LAPD wants to hear reimbursement. And I'm like, really? Because we pay sales tax, but we
Yeah,
have,
reimbursement.
we have to use the language reimbursement.
Yeah.
Don't do this, don't do that, don't do this. And I'm saying, okay, I understand the lawyers are saying this, but that is not in our regulations. So these are hidden rules. How many hidden rules do we have? Can we meet with LAPD? Can we meet with, well,
Right.
there's different chiefs in different areas that, you know, interpret it differently. So it's just, you know,
It's a
we just
mess.
need clarification.
Mhm.
I don't blame California. They were the first. They passed it out of compassion. Everyone else learned from us, but we really need to, on a
Get it
statewide
together.
level, take even what the Attorney General said was the guidelines, but it's like the first memo from Obama. It's not law, it's just guidelines.
Right. And that's what we all play on currently, is we all are policy driven. I mean, the law is irrelevant. Like in Amsterdam, where it is still against the law, they have a tolerance policy. And so we all play on policy, and policy has a lot to do with the localities. So those of us that are in the various areas need to be reaching out to their localities and saying, look, this is what we're bringing about, and this is why. We're going to show you reduced jail costs. Seattle didn't have to build a jail, right? The youth use in Portugal is down. Youth availability is down. Youth availability of other drugs is down. Addiction is down. This is what we're bringing to you. This is why you want us in your community, and you should be invested in helping us come there.
And literally, with every new Diego store and with every new Prima store, we will be seeing exactly these effects that John just mentioned. And I would go so far as to say that Aaron Justice is the John Davis of Southern California, or maybe John Davis is the Aaron Justice of the Northwest.
I'll take the Aaron Justice.
Very good. And so, literally, I mean, you know, and with everyone at this table here, we're literally in the presence of greatness. And we're in a position where we can move forward. And Aaron can, as he's lobbying these specific counties and cities in Southern California, we can go in and present them an actual tangible model and proposal. Yep. Boom, here you go, turnkey. You want to reduce crime, you want to reduce jail costs, you want to reduce youth access and availability, and you want to generate revenue and reduce costs at a governmental level. You get all of that with the flip of a switch. So to speak.
And here's the chief of police of Seattle, and here's the sheriff of King County, and here is the city attorney of Seattle, and here is the prosecutor of King County, and here are elected officials.
And here are the presidents of Uruguay and Mexico talking about the impacts on their countries and why they're welcome.
Well, that's the benefit of Diego Pellicer, that it's everywhere, it's gathering this information, and if we don't have that information in our local area, then we can rely on the information that we have as a group to bring to them. Mm-hmm. And I also think study-wise, like the Luskin School of Public Affairs for UCLA, they're doing a 5-year study right now on medical cannabis and public health, and they had to come at it is studying the harms of dispensaries, and it's a 5-year study, and it's more to see kind of what goes on in the local area. But it was funded and it's moving forward, and it almost seems that, because I think the University of San Diego just finished up like a 7-year study with the Medical Cannabis Research Group, and I think it was more focused on the harms, but then you do the studies on the harms and you just come up with positives. So, you know, that's another way to do it, because they don't let universities and that do the studies for the positive effects, but if you do one on the possible negatives but come out with positive effects,
that's okay.
Yeah.
Apparently,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
That's
yeah,
how it works.
yeah, like the Schaefer Commission.
Back on that. If we could standardize, you keep saying we need to do research on our patients, and I'm all on board with you on that. But we need to standardize. We need a standardized questionnaire or a standard. So I'm a contractor in the what I used to call the real world. Now this is my real world. But, I'm a contractor, and I want to compare apples to apples when I look at data. You know, when I'm looking at numbers. So if we could come up with some kind of standardized thing that we say, have these patients fill out, that somebody other than me, because that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to create a questionnaire, and I'm not the guy for that. Our scientist isn't the guy for that. We need a medical doctor to actually create a standardized form so that we can all share this, and then we have data that matches.
Yeah.
You know, line 3 is line 3.
Well,
you know?
talk about the medical doctor that we need. On our advisory board, we have Dr. Michael Osborne, who's one of the top cancer surgeons in the country, and he's the president of the Strong Institute of Cancer Prevention, which is the place that invented the pap smear, which has prevented more cancer than any other single treatment.
Very nice.
10 books.
So, combined. And in fact, he was at the symposium in Mexico, and he chatted it up quite a bit with Dr. Julio Frank, who's the dean of the School of Public Health at Harvard University.
Yeah.
Talk about, you know, epidemiological public health studies and whatnot, and cross that with UCLA and University of San Diego, and we've got some serious firepower that we can apply to this.
We always have access to Lester Grinspoon too, who's
Dr. Lester of Harvard University.
Yeah, which
exactly.
is also huge.
So
Emeritus.
we now have, so what we're talking about here is essentially moving forward on multiple prongs with the policy advocacy, you know, legislation side and the lobbying efforts and the relationship building and whatnot, but paired with the business side, having a business solution that we can turn on, paired with the media side, which Cheryl does so well, of putting out the word about exactly what we're doing, what are the brands we're promoting, and the models. And I think you've got one heck of a story. And speaking of the business side and actually rolling this out, John just passed me a note. We've got a meeting at 11:30 at 4th Avenue. What's the travel time? Maybe 20 minutes or so, including parking?
Oh, well, round in there. I always like to set aside half an hour.
Okay, so we should probably, so we can basically move the party to downtown, where we're looking at some facilities that we might be leasing in order to roll out the first Diego stores. So let me just kind of get a quick showing of hands. How many people would like to continue this? Okay, is there anyone who can't? Anyone who can't make it for the trip? Okay, all right, you got to get up. No worries. And then
I think you got the Cliff Notes.
Oh,
yeah. Okay.
Good man.
Great. So let's do that. Let's and Elise, you're gonna roll with us. Okay, she's gonna get B-roll of what we're looking at over there.
I wanted to just say one thing, if you can just grab this, because it's an important thing. Winning the Activist of the Year award was great, but one of the things that I noticed, 99.9% of it was very positive. Then I got a couple of haters that said, "You're not a real activist because you make a living at this."
Yeah, I know.
Now, let me, and hate mail and death threats, seriously.
Oh,
In
wow.
fact, so bad that they have armed security for me in Ohio, I'm not kidding.
Report that to
We
the
talked about
FBI,
that. But
seriously.
here's the point I would like to make. I think it's very, very important that we I mean, we're all activists, but I think it's very, very important that we make it a talking point in the media that we do, because the bottom line is we have to build successful businesses and
Yes.
successful business leaders in this industry, because those leaders who are also activists, and that's why this is all very key here at this table. I would much rather have a successful industry built with an activist or an activist vibe at the helm, because it's those businesses that are going to fund those initiatives, that are going to fund the programs that we need, and they're going to do it right. So that's where I rest my case.
Perfect example is Starbucks.
Yes. Yes.
You look around, drive around, where did I come from just before I came here?
Mhm.
A barista. Was it Starbucks? No, it was a drive-through barista. There are thousands of those, millions of those everywhere.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Why do they exist? Because of Starbucks.
Because of Starbucks.
How much of the industry does Starbucks control? Everybody's like, 80, 90%. Less than 20%. Okay, that means that they built an industry.
Yeah.
They're the biggest, but they built an industry where 80+% of it isn't them.
Mhm.
And it's a huge positive.
Well, and the other thing too, let's not forget, we have the ability to create jobs. Jobs,
Yes.
jobs, jobs. Our economy needs jobs, and we need that revenue. We need the tax revenue to fund the programs we need. I always say that cannabis is not only a miraculous plant that can heal a multitude of illnesses and provide a much greater wellness for all of us, that can heal our economy and our nation from the revenue that we generate. So that's where I stand proud to be
Yes.
a cannabis
That's what
business
the
owner.
tax
I think we
really
all
is
need
big.
to, rah-rah.
Yeah.
And I will-
That's also where the hemp side comes in, because they estimated that with the industrial hemp industry, you could create 100 million jobs.
Yeah.
That's a
Yeah.
lot of jobs.
That's a lot of
And-
jobs.
That's a lot.
And they're
People-
industrial jobs.
People are worried about taxes, and I will remind those people here that there currently is a marijuana tax, and that marijuana tax is funding the body of organized frickin' crime. And we need to just switch that over so that these taxes are being a positive benefit to our community.
I
to
think
the
on the cutting
locality.
edge of the taxes, Colorado is there right now. They're gonna, I think 15% is mandated by Amendment 64 to go directly to the school system.
Oh,
And they're debating right now another
So-
15% excise. That's where we're kind of
So
fighting with
we're
them.
not ending this conversation, we're just pausing it so that we can move,
Make our
get
point.
to downtown. So
Don't
this
take it
weekend-
all.